Good afternoon. Welcome to another Facebook Live session by SpeakingTree.in. Now, it's very easy to feel patriotic for your own country, but how easy is it for you to not just fall in love with another country, but also make it your home? Today we have Charles Thomson, Bihari Lal Thomson with us. He's an Australian who has made India his home and spreads the message of love, peace, equality and spirituality among all. And yes, he speaks impeccable Hindi too. So welcome. So let's start off really by asking about how it all started. When did you first visit India and how it all started? And it'd be really nice if you can answer this question in Hindi because I'm sure our viewers are very excited.
नमस्ते, राम राम सलाम, जय हिंदुस्तान। हाँ, मैं बचपन में दिसंबर 74, हो सकता है बहुत सारा लोग इस तारीख को सुन करके जन्म भी नहीं लिया था। उस समय मैं आया था कोलकाता और वहाँ से हम बिहार गया था और कुछ साल के लिए हम बिहार में अपना बचपन वहाँ पर बीत गया था। हाँ, बहुत अच्छा लगा, बहुत आनंद आया। और सबसे पहले याद है कि जैसे हम ट्रेन से जा रहे हैं कोलकाता से बिहार, गरम गरम चाय वहाँ उसी समय भी चलता था, अभी भी चलता है ट्रेन में, और वो कूलर में पिलाता था, तो बहुत अच्छा लगा, बहुत मजा आया।
I read somewhere that you were always fascinated by India, and of course, your mom used to, be a yoga teacher and things like that. So tell us about that journey. How did it really start?
Okay, so I'll just now explain that a little bit in English. My dad was a psychiatrist, and being a psychiatrist, he went to the United States to study something called transactional analysis, which is some part of psychiatry. So my mum, who had to give up being a ballerina when I was the first child being born and became a yoga teacher, decided that she, being a yoga teacher, needed to go and learn. If my father can go to America, in those days, very few people traveled. So if my father could go to the States, my mum could go somewhere. So she researched and she found this yoga school in Bihar, and she went there for 8 weeks. And she was so impressed, and she had such a wonderful time there. She invited one of the sadhus or one of the yoga teachers there to come to Australia. And after some time, this gentleman came, and he was put in my room. And I was living right near the water in Sydney, and I'd never met a Chinese, an Aboriginal, let alone an Indian. And I had a sadhu in my bedroom, in a langoti. And I used to look at this guy, and I was memorized by him. And he was actually quite a very interesting and very spiritual character. And just a short story about him. Our friends wanted to share him because it's like we had the White Australia policy, so before that, so we'd just never seen anybody like that. So we arranged him, we dropped him off at their home, and this was in Sydney. After about an hour or so, they became scared. They thought maybe he had some magic powers or he would do something. So they packed him a nice lunch, took him to a bus stop, gave him some money, wrote it down, and said, catch the bus back to the Thompsons. By the evening, I became worried because this wonderful person was not back at home. So I said to Mum, where is he? Let's contact. So my mum rang them, and they said, look, we dropped him at the bus stop. So my mum and me, we went in the car and we went to this bus stop. Now, this was probably the first time in Sydney, or probably the first time in Australia, a sadhu is sitting at a bus stop and people are meeting this gentleman. And what's he doing? He's giving satsang, and everybody is giving him offerings just spontaneously, and had all this food and everything there. And I went up to him and I said, what's happening? What's happening? He said, don't worry, I've come here to teach yoga, and I knew you guys would come and pick me up in due time. So that left a very lasting, strong impression on me. So that was one of the seeds that sort of brought that feeling that I should visit India.
And of course, I was just reading that you kept traveling back and forth, and you also told your father that if you scored good marks, he'll allow you to come to India. Is that true?
Yes. So what actually happened was, I was very fortunate. I came from a very well-off family, and I was one of the few people in that time. Not many people at all traveled by planes. So every year for my Christmas holidays, which are 8 weeks, I would travel from Sydney to the Gold Coast and stay with my grandparents by an aeroplane. So suddenly I got into my mind, if my dad can go to the States, my mum can go to India. And this time I was maybe about 10. Why don't, rather than going to the Gold Coast and spending boring 8 weeks with my grandparents, why can't I go to India? But the problem was how to get a ticket. And I'm dealing with my father, who's a psychiatrist, so I thought I'd use some psychiatry. So what I did was, I said to him, Dad, how about if I came first or second in my school, you'll have to fulfill my promise. and you have to give me a promise. My dad just lit up because, my grades weren't that good. He laughed. He said, anything you want. If you come first or second in the school, done. So I said to him, I want a ticket to India just like mum, and I want to spend my 8 weeks in India at that yoga school. So then what my dad did, he actually took me out of a government school and put me in the most expensive private school in Sydney. So suddenly it became a lot harder
to get those grades.
Yeah. So I incorporated something called Yoga Nidra, and I was also a member of it's called the Adya Society of Theosophical Society of Australia. So I started reading all these books and these texts and everything. So I started practicing the Yoga Nidra, incorporating my yoga, and I'm only about 10 or 11. And I started using all these techniques. And lo and behold, after 2 years, when I was about 12, I think, or 13, I came second in one of the most expensive, exclusive schools of Sydney. So suddenly my dad had to deliver, and I got myself an 8-week holiday ticket to India.
Great. I just like to remind our viewers that Charles sir is going to be with us for quite some time. So please write in with your questions about his experiences in India. So continuing that, if you would like to share some very interesting anecdotes, because they say India mystery hai. India mein bahut se experiences hote hain.
So the amazing thing was I was in Bihar, and at that time, we're going back 40 years. So I arrived just the month before Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister. So Bihar was like, even in India, it was going back to the 17th century. It wasn't that you had electricity. It came sometimes. It was very hot. It was very simple. We lived in very austere conditions. So I saw an India that we don't see today. I mean, there was extreme poverty. I can remember in Calcutta on my first few days of arrival, people were so poor, even children, they didn't have money for clothes. They used to wear Hessian bags. So India in those days and India today has changed enormously. Of course, there are always people that need help, but lots of things have changed. But there was a beauty at that period, and there's a beauty at this period. And I just fell in love with the country and the people. And so the funny thing was, I never actually pushed myself to learn Hindi. But the first thing I did was I went to one of my sadhus, or these yoga teachers, and I said, please teach me how to say thank you very much politely in Hindi. And this gentleman taught me, मैं गधा हूँ. And for 2 weeks, मैं सबके पास जाकर के बोला मैं गधा हूँ. सब लोग मुस्कुरा करके खुश हो गया था. 2 हफ्ते के बाद कोई आकर के बोला तुम ये बंद करो, धन्यवाद शुक्रिया बोलो, donkey नहीं है.
Interesting. Of course, we're taking questions now. One of the questions, very interesting. Explain your love for India in just one word. What will that word be?
Ancient.
And so, of course, you've been around yoga and you've been around spirituality. Does that stem from, a love for India, or has it always been there? Because, they say these things are inborn. So you've always been around spirituality, but, does it stem from the love for India? Or?
I think the amazing thing for most foreigners when they visit India, and this has happened from the time of independence up until just recently, is that there's been an enormous fascination and enormous respect for things like Ayurveda and yoga. But up until a few years ago, it was almost like nobody here even took any interest in it except for a few people who were going to yoga institutes. So one of the things that I'd like to share with you is the history of yoga in India was actually started by a Swami called Swami Shivanand in Rishikesh. He started the Divine Life Society, and one of the amazing things that he did was that, and we're talking even before my birth, this is in the 40s, 50s, when he would invite the Indian devotees into the ashram in Rishikesh and try to teach them yoga, they would say, why should we practice? No, we are grahast. We are not practicing. And then a couple of foreigners would walk in, they'd love to do it. So he came up with a strategy. It was amazing. He asked people to bring the telephone books of Europe, and they would bring him. And then he would print books on yoga in English and send them for free. Now you're talking 40s, 50s, and I think he had his Mahasamadhi in 61 when I was born. So suddenly you imagine you're a European. the word India is some exotic country that you heard in the British Raj, and you would just see pictures of, Rajas and Maharajas and all those sort of things. And books are very, very rare, expensive items. And suddenly, for free, a book would arrive at your home, and you'd read this book, and it'd be on the practice of yoga. So he put a deep samskara across the world on the practices of yoga. Now, what's happened, of course, over all of these years is as Indians, for economic reasons, have migrated abroad, they've suddenly found that people around them, all these foreigners where they start to live and get to know, are practices of yoga and Ayurveda. So then suddenly they've built a fascination, and then they've started returning and started to learn.
Great. And I have a very interesting question. You have a very interesting middle name, of course, that's born in India, Bihari Lal. How did that come about?
Oh, okay. That's an amazing story. I decided to join Bollywood. Okay. Now, joining Bollywood is not easy. There's no rules in the books. And so I managed to, on social media about 4 or 5 years ago, I managed to connect with some film directors. And this Marathi film director sent me a message and said, go to Film Bazaar in Goa. So every year from the 20th to the 24th of November, India's premier film bazaar, when film directors, producers from all over the world come and they stay in the Marriott, and there's this amazing conference there. So just by chance, I bumped into some Biharis here in Siri Fort, and they are actually the guys behind who do all the work. And you have to pay some fees or something. And I said to them, look, I've come back to India, I don't have much money. Don't worry, just go. So I arrived at the Marriott, and then suddenly they said, look, sorry, if you haven't paid, you can't get in. So I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So this is about 4 years ago. So then I decided, एक तरीके करेंगे, ये सब कोंकणीज है, मैं खाली हिंदी बात करेंगे. तो मैं हिंदी में बात करना शुरू करते हैं, और मैं बोलते हैं मैं अंग्रेजी नहीं बोलता है. तो ये जितने जो बच्चे लोग हैं मैरियट में, ये लोग तो खुश हो गए, कोंकणीज है, अरे अंग्रेज हिंदी बोल रहा है, वो भी बहुत मजेदार से, चलो उसको तो हम लोग, वो हिंदुस्तान का सेवा है, हम लोग मदद करेंगे. तो वो लोग हमको चुप से सब कार्यक्रम में लेके जाना शुरू कर दिया. तो उसका पीछे में एक व्यक्ति मेरे पीछे में पड़ गया, और वो 2-3 घंटे तक मेरा पीछे में फॉलो कर रहा था, और कैमरा ले करके कभी कुछ रिकॉर्डिंग कर रहा था. तो मैं तंग हो गया. तो मैंने उनसे पूछा, आप कौन हो? तो वो बोलते भाई 3 घंटे से ये सोच रहे कि तुम कौन हो. तो बात करने लगा. वो बीबीसी हिंदी का, उसका पहले बार उनको प्रोजेक्ट मिला, उसको गो भेजा, वो कवरेज किया. तो वो ने मुझे देख करके और मेरा सब नौटंकी देख करके, ठीक है तुम्हारा नाम बिहारी लाल बनाएंगे. और आपको आश्चर्य लगा, वो एक, मुझे भी नहीं मालूम था, वो एक स्टोरी लिखा था, वो बीबीसी हिंदी का फेसबुक लाइव में पूरा दुनिया में नंबर 1 हो गया, और कुछ रिकॉर्डिंग किया था. तो तब से ये बिहारी लाल. और असली मैं जब बिहारी लाल का नाम सुनता है, मैं तो बिहार का सोचता है, लेकिन बाद में मुझे ज्ञान पड़ा है कि कृष्ण भगवान का बच्चे का रूप है.
Of course, we're taking questions. So one of our viewers want to know, it's a very interesting question, that, we stay in India, we're born and brought up in India, yet we keep complaining about things, safety nahi hai, ye problem hai, sanitation nahi hai, hygiene nahi hai, but you prefer to look at the bright side of things. So how do you maintain that? Because obviously you've not been brought up like that. I mean, you were not born into, to see the country like that.
Okay, so there are 2 very interesting parts to this question. One part of this question is, I every 6 months go back for a few weeks to Australia. And what's extraordinary, of course, over there, sanitation, vikas, development, everything's at a very, very high level. Just like, I suppose, if one would go to Japan or Thailand or Korea. Now, what I find over there is everybody's whinging. Everybody's complaining. Things are not good enough. So I think it's inherent in all nations that people just have to keep complaining, because we have to keep improving and we have to keep getting ahead. Where life's journey becomes very interesting, and where something like the whole concept of Sanatana Dharma or yoga is, you start to learn about becoming positive and looking at the positive side of things. You see, there are always 2 sides to a coin. You can look at something and you can take a very negative approach, or you can take a very positive approach. And I've often said to many foreigners when they're coming to India, if you're just going to look at the dark side or the side that's very uncomfortable, you're not going to manage here. You have to look deeper and find those things which are inherent from India, which make it so special.
Right. And we don't have much time with us, so please write another question. This is actually a continuation of the last question. One of our viewers wanted to know, is there anything you want to change about India? What is that one thing you want to change about India?
That's a very interesting question. It's a little bit controversial, but I'll say this. भारत जो जमीन है बहुत पवित्र है, बहुत पुराना है. भारत के जो लोग हैं उसमें कुछ कुछ थोड़ा सा बदलना पड़ता है, साफ सफाई में, ये सब चीज में. But I'm really happy to see finally, see, I've been coming for 40 years and I've been meeting all the politicians in the net up. I'm really happy to see that you have a prime minister today who has actually taken the lead and speaks about sanitation, cleanliness, building of toilets. Because these things, we have to start somewhere. And if we don't start a conversation and we don't impress it on the youth of India, these things won't change. So that's one aspect where I think a lot, and of course pollution, a huge lot of work has to be done. But I was absolutely delighted the other day when I saw a lovely clip on that beach, I think at Versava in Bombay. Versava Beach.
Yes.
Some gentleman there, decided that he would get rid of all the plastic and the turtles had come back. Now, you see, in India, there are two types of people. There's one who says, कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, जैसा है वैसा रहेगा. And then there's the youth of today. नहीं 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 नहीं, हम लोग को विकास चाहिए, हम लोग बदलने वाला है. So that was very inspiring and very wonderful to see. And I'm sure these things, especially with the huge youth that we now have in India, will change, because I see a lot of the youth are impatient, but at the same time, I see a very positive side to that, where they want change and they're demanding change.
Right, and you of course are a huge believer of yoga and keeping yourself fit and things like that. So what was that experience been like? Has it always been an interest, and how has it changed your life, honestly?
Okay, let me first just give you a couple of small anecdotes. In Australia, I personally do not believe in trying to impress somebody or trying to convert somebody. This is not the way things are done. So in Australia, a lot of my friends, I would never tell them that I practice yoga. But after 3 months, 6 months, they'd always pop the question, what are you taking or what religion are you following? Why is it that you're always very high on energy, you're very happy, and you're always smiling? And then, only then I would suggest yoga. And that, of course, would create a samskar, which would start to make them interested. Now, what I find amazing today is, 30 years ago, if you went to the parks of India, they weren't used. Today, when you go to any park in India, you will see people doing Bhastrika Pranayama, you will see people doing walking. Suddenly this health consciousness, which is very much prevalent in the West, getting up early and doing it, all stuff that we've learned from India, it's all coming back, and now people are becoming health conscious. And for me, I mean, yoga has been such a blessing. I'll give you a short one about this. I believe in getting regular health checkups. So one time I was getting health checkup, and they put on this little tube, they put a camera, they put it through your nose, and they looked in my throat. And I'm missing a silent reflux. And they say 1 in 3 people in the world miss a silent reflux. I think Obama's also missing it. What that means is that when the stomach builds up acidic, it comes up in the throat, and as you get older, it causes problems. Now, practicing yoga and also being a vegetarian has meant that I've never faced those problems. And my doctor at the time, we checked and said, you're in wonderful health. I'm surprised. I've never seen somebody without that missing in such good health. So all along the way, I've always had these little ticks and balances, especially when I've had health medical checkups. I've dealt with the medical community, and they've always started popping the question, because I've never said I'm practicing yoga. I've always gone in as a blank check, completely not saying that I'm doing anything, just as I am. And then invariably they'll start asking the question, what are you doing in your life? Something you must be doing, because you're obviously so much healthier than everybody we see.
And sir, talking about spirituality and happiness, we as humans, our ultimate goal is happiness. Khush hona chahiye life mein. So what is your ultimate goal? What is the end result that you're looking for? That is one of our viewers that is asking, what is your ultimate goal in life?
You see, I take a very simple view of life. To me, life is about waking up in the morning in a smile and having an amazing new day. I just think we are blessed to be on this planet. I don't have a negative view. In fact, I'll share something very interesting with you. Up until the event of penicillin, that's penicillin which was a discovery. My dad, who's a psychiatrist, was actually explaining to me, and it's quite amazing. a lot of people, their life expectancy was no more than 25 to 45, right from the beginning of time. And many women in childbirth, because there'd be cesarean section, would not have penicillin and would die. Now we're in this amazing period of time where you can live. My grandparents, everybody in my family, we live to 90 or 100. So we've got this extended life expectancy. So enriching our lives and doing things with our lives and meeting, it just becomes a wonderful experience. I cannot understand. I mean, I understand depression is a very serious subject, but people come to me and they say they wake up in the morning and they just feel depressed. Now, interestingly, there's a little antidote there. My father, when my mum first started teaching yoga, was completely anti-yoga. Being a psychiatrist, being a medical professional from the West, but how could he tell his wife that he totally disapproved with her practices of yoga? So what he did was he used to get all these harmless, crazy patients and send them along to my mum's yoga classes. And then you know what these patients would do? They went back to my dad and thanked him. They've never felt better in their life. So that's a very wonderful endorsement of some of the simple techniques of yoga.
Right. I think we've completely run out of time. As the last question, we believe you're quite the jack of all trades. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and also a message for the Speaking Tree readers who are right now viewing you on their phones on the Facebook Live.
Okay, a couple of things. Keep an open mind. Please, we now live in a social media world where you're bombarded with information. When you read something and it says something is bad or something is good, keep an open mind and just take a step back. Don't be too judgmental. Look at it very carefully. I know India is now, and the whole world is going through a difficult stage where all our institutions and all of our teachers are coming under challenge because of social media. So much is coming forward. So it's very, very important not to be overwhelmed and not to get lost with every conspiracy theory. This is one thing I would share with you. The second thing I would share with you is it's really important to look at ourselves physically and say, what are we doing to improve our immune system? Because if you're healthy, really healthy, and you're practicing just a little bit of meditation, it just completely changes the dynamics and your life, and that's really important because we're all on this planet to have a great experience. We're not on this planet to suffer. And one of the things that it really hits me all the time is that when I meet young people here in India, so many of them, even here in Gurugram, I've worked with so many of them, the weather changes, they fall sick. The air's bad, they fall sick. They all get upset stomachs. Now, I'm probably older than their parents. I am, actually. And I hardly get sick. I do get sick, but much less and much more minimal, simply because I found a way. Now, yoga's not for everybody. You may find another path, but it's really important in our life to find tools to assist us on our journey, on this amazing journey of being an individual on this planet.
Wonderful. That's a lovely parting note. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Thank you for joining. And
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. मुझे बहुत शुक्रिया है कि ये Times of India के साथ संबंधित है. ये बहुत पुराना प्रकाशन है. बहुत साल से चल रहा है. मैं स्पीकिंग ट्री को ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं दिया है, लेकिन मैंने उसके बारे में सुना. बहुत अच्छा लगा आप जो काम करा है.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
शुक्रिया.
Thank you for your daily dose of spirituality. Please keep logging to speakingtree.in. Thank you.